And welcome into Gator Bytes on the 1010XL.com podcast network, also being simulcast on the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page. Today's Gator podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialists, the Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's, along with Southeast Orthopedic Specialists. I bring in Denny Thompson, also the good folks at George Moore Chevrolet.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking through something real quick. It's possible that I may have put a dirty shirt on today.
Interesting.
Yeah. You see that?
Well, we are here about 30 minutes early, so I had to grab something off the closet that I hope was
it's
clean.
possible. I just saw something here. So anyway, George Moore Chevrolet.
Yes.
Yeah. If y'all saw me distracted, that's what it was. Get over there. Just everybody's in the market for like either service. That's where they make their money, by the way. Have you ever noticed that? Like, you're really sat in a car dealership?
Oh, yeah. Look, the oil changes, the tire rotations, the
good for them.
Adjustments.
I was in there the other day, and it's like just one right after the other. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. You got to have something done. Go do it with some good guys.
And from what I hear, it's a good time of year to buy an automobile, right?
Is that right?
December, might be a nice gift.
Oh, yeah. That's what they say.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I think always a good time to buy more love.
If any of my family or friends are listening, I wouldn't mind a vehicle from George Moore Chevrolet.
You want to be that guy?
I wouldn't mind it.
You want the bow?
I'd love the bow. In fact,
Justin Moore listens.
Yeah.
Justin, if somebody buys Hack a truck or a car, will you put the bow on it for him?
Justin Moore's listening right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, I have a car that's coming up on 135,000 miles.
There you go.
So I might be taking a trip to Justin Moore
There
and
you
George
go,
Moore
Justin.
Chevrolet.
I love the bow's the best part.
The bow is the best part.
On the commercials when there's the bow.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Just so awesome.
All right.
Makes me feel silly about the sweater I got my wife, but anyway.
Graham Marsh, I'm the hacker. He's Denny Thompson. All right, here's my motto for the Gators after the Florida State game. The 2023 season in a nutshell. Don't be glad that it happened. Be glad that it's over.
Wow.
And I think that's where a lot of Gator fans are, at least the ones I know. They just got tired of watching it. There's a lot of angles to this I want to get to. Transfer portal, defensive coaches being let go. There's a lot of things, a lot of stuff to get into, and certainly we want to preview, the playoff and what's going to happen tomorrow and Championship Saturday. But the one thing I left Saturday night with after the Florida State game was this. We've been talking about culture, right, and turning the program around. And in the span of 2.5 to 3 hours on Saturday, Florida had a defensive lineman hock a loogie in an opponent's face and get ejected. They had two DBs essentially trying to kill Tate Rodemaker when he slid down 5 yards shy of a first down late in the fourth quarter on a key third down situation. They had Eugene Wilson just throw an assistant coach's hand off his shoulder in a violent fashion. It was embarrassing at times. So don't tell me about they're putting up a good fight and they're playing good games and they're battling, and then talk about the culture there. There was hardly any culture on Saturday night with some of the actions of some of those Gator players.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that is more than fair. I think that's all more than fair. And it's just a bad look all the way around right now. It's funny. The college football season flies by, right? I mean, this time of year just absolutely scorches by. But at the same time, when you start to look back at that Utah game, that seems like forever ago.
A long time ago.
Right. I think as Gator fans, everybody came into this year with fairly low expectations, right? Like everybody was, hey, if we can get to 7 wins, that's great. But then they had these moments during the season that almost gave you hope, and so it almost made that crash a little harder. I mean, beating Tennessee, or even the Utah game. You look at that Utah game, you're like, if it wasn't for just being stupid at times, they beat a top 10 team in the country to start the year off at their place. And it was just the inconsistency, and you see Kentucky run for 1,000,000 yards, and then I think the rest of the year finish the season, like 2-5? After that, they look unbeatable against Florida. And they beat Tennessee, and you start to recap the season, and it's like, I don't even know what they are. I still have no idea what Florida's identity is as a football program. I don't know what to think about this defense, because now, this goes back before Napier, we consistently see the same thing run out every single year, regardless of who the defensive coordinator is. It looks identical. It's blown coverages, it's stupid penalties, it's undisciplined play, it's jumping off sides, it's stupid things like that. So it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same in Gainesville, and that is a crappy rut to be in as a fan.
Well, I'm good not watching. And what's Billy Napier going to say? But I don't need to watch any more press conferences for a few months because I'm tired of hearing about cleaning it up. We're going to cleaning it up. No, you're not. The same thing happened against Florida State that happened against Utah. The same thing that happened against Kentucky happened against LSU and Missouri. You're not going to clean anything up.
And let's not forget about Arkansas.
Yeah, I mean, it was just...
what a cluster that was.
Just lunacy. The same things. It's over and over and over, the same stupid things. And look, all right, now we get to some of the attrition, right? It's been an interesting week. Keep in mind, the season ended 6 days ago. It's not as if we're deep into the offseason. You've had a bunch of guys hit the portal. You've had a couple of defensive coaches dismissed. And I think it is hilarious that some Gator fans are like, well, why'd you let go of Corey Raymond? Why are you letting go of these defensive coaches? Did you watch the defense? Oh, but Hacker, he's a great recruiter. Wonderful. They allowed 700 yards to LSU. The DBs are worse now than they were when Napier arrived. Somebody had to be held accountable, and I can almost guarantee you what happened. Austin Armstrong, I'm sure, went to Billy Napier after the year and said, wait a minute, I'm getting crushed here. I didn't hire any of these guys. All of these guys were here before you brought me in. If you're going to give me another year, at least let me bring in guys that I'm familiar with and that run my defensive scheme. That's something we didn't even talk about during the year because, quite frankly, Denny, I didn't even think about it. They hired a D coordinator when all the defensive assistants were in place. And who knows if they saw eye to eye on all the things they were trying to do.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, and I mean this. He's how old?
30.
Does he have guys?
I'm sure. I mean, everybody, you're a former coach.
Yeah.
Everybody's got guys.
I'm sure he's got guys that he knows that would gladly take the trip to Gainesville.
Sure.
But are they Gainesville quality guys?
Well, the ones they had this year were not Gainesville quality guys either.
I'm thinking about when I was 30 in this business. Like, yeah, I thought I knew guys. I didn't know guys. Like, I don't. This goes to my point though. Like, we don't know anything about this program right now. We don't know any more about Billy Napier. We don't know any more about the direction of this program than what we knew last year. The only thing that we're hanging on to right now is a recruiting class. And you just said something that's right. You said, well, it doesn't matter the recruits, they can't cover on the field. So now we're getting rid of recruiters. And when the only thing we're hanging on to is recruiting class. And like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just know the uncertainty is baffling to me at the University of Florida. It feels like to me there needs to be one of those stand-up moments by Billy Napier where he says, this is what we are. This is what we're going to do. This is who we are. This is my staff. If they fire me in 2 years, this is what I believe in, right? I don't think we've gotten that. I think we've just gotten a little bit of constant turnover each year. And I don't think that's fair either, by the way. I think if you're going to hire a coach, and I've been consistent on this, then you should let that coach keep his coaches as long as he wants to, right? There shouldn't be an external pressure because if your coach's ultimate job is to keep his job, then let him determine who's best around him to keep that job as well.
Oh, I agree with that with like the coordinators to an extent. Somebody had to pay for the worst Gator defense maybe I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I've followed it pretty close for the last 35 years. I can't remember a worse Gator defense.
We don't know what's
this.
happening. We have no idea what's happening off the field in Gainesville right now, meaning we don't know which of these assistant coaches are the ones that are up until midnight recruiting kids. We don't know that. And that's the trick. That's what makes what Kirby Smart has done so unbelievable is to find that balance of dudes that are relentless recruiters and then the balance of dudes that are relentless coaches, and you combine them, and then you're able to keep them. And you're able to keep that culture, like you said. Man, it's a tough thing to do.
A couple of things. All right, now, at the time you and I are doing this, and assuredly, after I say this, an hour from now, it'll change. But at the time you and I are talking, Corey Raymond, Spencer are both gone, and they have had no decommitments in the 4 days since.
Right.
All right? So I think that's interesting. They had a couple of decommitments when they were still on staff. So people that are worried about recruiting, again, it's been, 4 days. It's not a long time.
I actually wasn't being specific to Corey Raymond in my comment. But
right,
go
but that's
ahead.
what Gator fans are flipping out about is that Corey Raymond's gone, so the whole class will be awful. Secondly, we got to be careful about stars because remember, Kamari Wilson was a 5-star out of IMG. He couldn't find the field, and now he's transferred. Jason Marshall was a 5-star from South Florida, and he and Jalen Kimber both, I think Florida's defense may be better if they just no longer are out there. Jalen Kimber in particular. He was bad. And I hate to say that about a collegiate athlete, but he didn't
have a good year.
He made a business decision to not tackle Trey Benson on Saturday night, which at that point I was just pretty much done with Jalen Kimber. And I wish him well. I don't know if he has any eligibility left, but I cannot imagine Florida's defense would suffer that much if those two guys go to greener pastures.
I'm curious where you're going with the star thought.
Well, I mean, Kamari Wilson's a 5-star, and everybody's raving about him. He's the best safety prospect at Florida in years, and is he not being developed? Was he overrated? Same thing with Marshall. Same thing with Kimber. I mean, everybody's so pumped about these 5-stars. Well, if you don't have coaches teaching them properly, and guys are wide open every play, I mean, how good is a 5-star?
Well, I think there's a couple different categories here. Listen, 5-stars are really good. I am not a big fan of the rating services, but I've seen them work enough to know that if you're one of those 32, 33, 34 5-stars, they're not the only person that thinks that about you. Every college in the world thinks that about you. You're a very highly rated prospect. Now, some of these guys get to college and they stop growing, right? They've kind of hit their peak. And so that's one group. They can't do anything about that. They just didn't get better. They peaked early. And then there's another group that's kind of the Jalen Kimber who goes somewhere, and then all of a sudden it's like they don't like it there. They go somewhere else. And those 5-stars very rarely work out. There was a running back from Miami a couple years ago that bounced around. Miami, Clemson.
Lorenzo Lingard,
Florida. Like those guys rarely work out. Where you make your money is you recruit the 5-stars, you develop the 5-stars, you keep the 5-stars. Right? And that's when you're talking about a lot of these guys. Now, Kamar is different, but when you're talking about a lot of these guys, when we say 5-stars with Florida, they didn't recruit them out of high school. They transferred there in the transfer portal. I don't really count that. But if we're going to talk about recruiting being so important, you have to acknowledge the importance of stars.
Yes, to an extent. I think some people put too much. Like, I'm watching this right here. You know what Damian George was coming out of high school?
Man, are you going to give me this
I'm just telling
story?
you. Do you know what Damian George was coming out of high school?
I just heard about Barry Sanders having 3 offers.
He's giving you the opposite of a success story.
Okay. Damian George was a 4-star among the top 25 offensive tackles in the country the year he went to Alabama. He transferred to Florida. He was bad this year.
Okay.
I think he's the worst. You're
going to give me the other way.
I think he's the worst starting lineman I've ever seen at UF.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
You know,
they couldn't line up when he was in the game. They could not line up and snap the ball.
You go into the transfer portal like Mike Norvell does, and you get good players. Or you go into the transfer portal like Billy Napier has done, and you bring in guys that, quite frankly, have hurt your football team. And a couple of these guys hurt the Gator football team.
Where did the Jeremiah Johnson guy come from a couple years ago?
Jermaine Johnson?
Oh, he went to South Carolina.
Georgia. No, Georgia.
Oh, Georgia.
He was at Georgia and he wasn't playing, so he went to Florida State and became
and
AC.
And Jared Verse was
Albany.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. Norvell's just got an eye for this stuff. Like, he gets guys that just have this hunger about them, and they're aggressive players. I don't know enough about Keon Coleman's background. Maybe he was a 4 or 5-star. I don't know.
He was a good player at Michigan State.
He was a beast in Michigan State.
No, I remember Peyton Thorne telling me, like, when he transferred, Peyton was like, ugh.
Well, I'm just on a rant here because
No, I'm with you. I'm following along. I'm just, again, I can't wrap my head around what just happened this year. I can't wrap my head around the fact that is today December 1st?
Yes.
Yeah, we're December 1st. I don't know anything different. Do y'all know anything different right now than you did August 1st?
No, and let me tell you another thing that fires me up. No, you're right. We don't. I mean, it's been 3 months since the Utah game, and I don't know much more now than I did then. And this narrative, all right, and even some of our colleagues have used this, but certainly fans have used this. This is nothing more than a coping mechanism, okay? Oh, they put up a good fight. Oh, they're battling. This is the University of freaking Florida. These are 3 Heisman winners, 3-time national champions. The fun and gun with Spurrier, the spread with Urban. Some of the best college football players that ever played on this planet have played in Gainesville. From Tim Tebow to Danny Warfel to go on down the line. And we have been beaten down so much in 2023, and quite frankly, in years leading up to this, to now Gator fans, though I guess want to sleep better at night, and even some Gator media, quite frankly, oh, they're putting up a good fight? They're battling. They're not giving up. Are you kidding me, man? They're 11-14 in the last 25 games. Since when? Go tell Tim Tebow, if he goes 5-7 back in 2007, hey, Tim, it's okay because you put up a good fight. Give me a break. Your thoughts?
Graham, first off, I'd like for you to acknowledge my silence because that's going to be the promo
I'm just
for Gator
saying.
Bytes. And so I made it an easy edit for you. Right? I let my man go. That was spectacular. I have no other thoughts.
Denny saw the vision.
Yeah, I did. I was here. Can we put the George Moore logo on that, please? No, I mean, I think you're right. Like, that's the thing. That's the hard thing, though. It's the reality of that you are at a level where that is being said. You are at a level where, oh, well, at least they put up a fight because they had nothing else to play for. And you say a bowl game, but where were they going to go? Right? That's the reality of this thing. But you're right. You're 100% right. It never should be at this point. The problem they got now, though, is like you fire this coach. Now you're becoming that school.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to fire Napier.
No, I don't either.
I think Napier deserves at least another year. Now,
but
5-7 again, and he's in trouble.
Here's the thing. It's going to take extreme leadership at the very tops, right, to figure this thing out. Like, it really is. It's going to take somebody stepping up and saying, hey, here's our plan. Everybody's on board. Napier, you're good for the next 2 years, but we got to have this. We got to do this, right? You're going to hire an OC, and I don't know if that's even a need, but I'm just giving an example. You're going to hire a special teams coordinator. Please, somebody say that. Let's at least get that done, right? It's going to take extreme vision all the way throughout the program to figure out where this program is going to be in the next couple of years because it is in a funk.
The first couple weeks next season, if they don't have 11 guys on any special teams unit, that might be it. I might just stop watching.
There's no way. There's no
way
that he doesn't have a special team.
They've got 7,000 people on staff. Hire someone that their only job is to count to 11 every play.
All right. So today, I want to bring this up. Today's Gator Podcast is brought to you by Southeast Orthopedic Specialist and Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care. You can check out their website by going to se-ortho.com. You can also listen for the Southeast Orthopedic Specialist updates with the good Dr. Kevin Murphy on Thursday mornings in the 7 o'clock hour with Jeff and Dan right here on 1010XL for his weekly analysis of injuries in sports. Your guys at George Moore Chevrolet, were they frustrated by 5-7? Were they?
Oh, yeah.
Were they over it?
Yeah. That hardcore Gator fans.
Gator fans.
Hardcore. All the way from like marketing department to Justin. Hardcore Gator fans. If you're a Gator fan, mention that. They'll probably give you a discount, I would assume.
Seminole is a cuss word in their building.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
That type stuff.
So next year.
I can't say that because now Seminoles aren't going to play. They have Seminole fans working there.
Yeah.
They got a dude named Augie who is like the biggest Notre Dame fan I've ever seen in my life.
Augie? It's a great name.
Yeah.
Great name.
Yeah.
All right. So next year, here's the schedule. You ready for this? And I'm sure you've seen it. How many of these games right now would you pick them to win? Miami, August 31st. They winning that game?
I'm going to say yeah because Miami literally don't have a quarterback for a bowl game. So, I mean, I can't project they're going to be.
Yeah.
So I'll give them that one.
I mean, they play Samford. They play Texas A&M at home. They play UCF at home. They're at Tennessee, Georgia. They're obviously at Florida State. Games that don't have official dates yet. Home against Kentucky, home against LSU, home against Ole Miss, at Texas, at Mississippi State. So your road games are at Texas, at FSU, at Tennessee, Georgia here. You get Miami, UCF, Kentucky, LSU, and Ole Miss in Gainesville. Good grief, man.
The thing that pops off about me is you look at two of those games. You look at Texas A&M, you look at Mississippi State. Everything that we know about those two schools, go ahead and erase right now because they just hired guys that are going to put the ball in the air the way that Lane Kiffin does, especially Mississippi State. Mississippi State, that hire, Jeff Levy, who is a great coach, a part of that whole Browse thing. Like I think he's in-laws with the Browse. That dude was a direct answer to the way that Ole Miss is performing under Lane Kiffin. That is their Lane Kiffin. So if you don't get this defensive backfield situation figured out, that schedule is brutal.
Your thoughts on the dismissal of Spencer and Raymond on the defensive staff?
I don't really have thoughts. Like I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what's going on there. I don't. if that's what I'm going to trust at this point, that Billy Napier and staff, they always do know that they're coaching for their job. And so I got to put the best people around me. And if they feel like those people are not the best people around them, I'm going to trust them because they're literally coaching for their job this year. So I don't really get into coaches like that because they're all super talented guys. They all work hard. None of them are trying to fail. Like they're just at some point ineffective in communication, or they're ineffective with the players that they have or the type of scheme they have. And you just got to find the right fit.
All right, so other things that have happened this week. We'll get to Graham Mertz in a moment. That was like one of the positives, him and Cameron Jackson. A lot of departures. Now, a lot of these transfer portal guys, I don't really know how much they were going to play next year. Caleb Douglas would have played. I think that's a decent transfer guy that Florida's going to lose. Kamari Wilson, Odom. I mean, there are some guys there. Max Brown has entered the portal. But I think Florida will tell you the more guys that leave that aren't starting caliber guys might be good. That means the more guys they can bring in from the portal.
Well, I do think if you need a roster turnover, that's the goal. You're going to get it. You're going to get it this year. I don't think this is done. And I don't know anything about what's going on in Gainesville. I'm just thinking about like the world I live in right now. I mean, we're 24 hours a day dealing with transfer portal stuff with our guys, and we have a bunch of guys who haven't made a decision, who legitimately just have not made a decision, and they're not in a hurry to make that decision because once you put your name in that portal, you get a whole fan base that hates you, right? So it's a big decision in their life. So that decision, I think, for a lot of people is coming this weekend. I think everybody's kind of put a deadline of, all right, when Championship Saturday is done, I got to have my decision done. So I think if we get to do this podcast next Wednesday and we're kind of in that same situation where these are the only names, and that's probably a pretty good sign.
Are you?
Well, is it a good sign? Do you want to see, Graham, weigh in on this? Do you want to see mass departures? Do you want to see like a 50% roster turnover, or are you trying to keep as many people as you can?
No, I think you try to keep, well, within reason. Some of the guys leaving I don't think matters, but what would matter is Eugene Wilson. What would matter is ETN. There are internet rumors, message board rumors. If you lose a Boardingham, an ETN, a Hansen, a Wilson, obviously, Mizell, Gene, any of those youngsters that think you have something there, then yeah, that would be bad.
Well, if you lose those guys, there's deeper problems too. If you lose those young guys that are getting playing time, there's deeper problems.
If you're ETN though, I don't blame him for being upset.
ETN's different. ETN, this will be his third year, right? But if you lose,
like if Jordan Castell, who started all year as a freshman, transfers, it's like, why?
You got at that point, it's like, okay, wait, what's going on here?
I just made a name up, by the way. There's
right. No, I got you.
A lot of the guys you see transferring out or entering the portal from Florida are guys that haven't necessarily seen a lot of the field. I mean, Caleb Douglas did, but he got hurt. Kamari Wilson, again, 5-star guy.
Caleb Douglas is a good player.
Caleb Douglas is a very good player. He would have been very good if he didn't get hurt. And that leaves Florida now without him and Pearsall, who's leaving. You got Eugene Wilson and Marcus Burke, I guess.
Okay, so there's some receivers that'll hit the port. Now, to piggyback off what we were just saying, because this is an opportunity to rebuild your roster. If you have people leaving who's starting, there is one scenario that has nothing to do with your program that's happening right now. And that is that these guys understand that leverage is key, and I have maximum leverage if I get in the portal. Somebody new is going to pay me more than what somebody is currently paying me if I'm getting paid at all, right? So there's times where you can see a dude jump in a portal who's a freshman that played a ton, and the optimist on me says, okay, if your favorite team needs to get good at that position and they can spend some money, then they can go get that guy. There's nothing wrong with that guy. He just was making nothing, and he went to the coach and was like, you're still going to make nothing. And he says, well, I can make $1 million in Gainesville. And so he hops in the portal, right? If you can win a couple of those battles, Keon Coleman's, like if you can win a couple of those battles, then the receiver isn't an issue. And you have to win those battles to be competitive now.
Well, and that point relates to something Hack said a minute ago about if you were to ask any Gator fan during the season, any last one, should Florida go portal shopping pretty hard in the offseason, they'd all say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So if that is your line of thinking, which I think for most people it is, then you can't freak out when all these guys that are currently on the roster leave. Hacker just said it. You have to make room somewhere.
Right, but the only way, Graham, I would freak out is if it is the ETNs.
Correct.
No doubt.
I think
no doubt. Yeah.
I think that there's probably a list of around 10 to 15 guys that if those guys leave, it's like, that sucks. And then after that, it's like, I'll live with whoever, man.
Yeah, y'all, we see the money end of this coaching stuff, and we think there's never been a better time to be a coach. That's false. There has never been a worse time to be a college football coach. This portal stuff is wild, and for the most part, they hate it.
Do these dudes ever sleep?
Hates it. No, they can't.
They literally don't sleep.
They can't. Like, it's an unbelievable environment we're in right now.
Hasn't it been changed, though? Like, it's a shorter window this year, right? The portal?
Man, this stuff never sleeps.
Right, but I mean, don't you have to, like, make a decision?
Yeah.
I thought they changed it.
Yeah,
Because it used to be the portal was, like, open the entire offseason.
The portal, technically, I don't even know if it's open yet, but everybody's
It's
entering.
not, I don't think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's a constant thing.
And you have National Signing Day coming up
Roster
in 3 weeks.
management, yes. Roster management is at a premium right now, and you're constantly trying to figure out what your roster is going to be. You're scouting. This wasn't a thing. You're scouting other teams now. Not that you're playing because you want to see what their players are in case they hit the portal. This thing has become NFL-like, and it's good in a lot of ways, but I'm telling y'all, like, there's no way I could be a coach right now.
We got to go quick here because I know we got to get going because I want to get to the games tomorrow. Quickly, Graham Mertz and Cameron Jackson announced they're both coming back. The D lineman, I mean, the D line's going to be benefited greatly by having him back, Cameron. So that's a big deal. But obviously, Mertz is the story. He's the starting quarterback next year, right? I mean, I don't think there's any question about that. The reason I bring that up, there was some thought, would Florida go into the portal and try to get a, DJ Ungalele or a Grayson McCall or any of these guys that have entered the portal, or Riley Leonard? I don't think that's the case now. I think you got Graham Mertz, and then you'll have DJ Lagway coming in, and that's kind of your 1-2 combo at quarterback.
Well, Graham Mertz is better than 2 of the 3 you just named. I mean, I think you've got a good guy there.
Who's he better than?
I think he's better than Grayson McCall.
Okay, he's not better than Riley Leonard.
No, I give him Riley, but I wouldn't be that quick to claim.
What about DJ?
To crown DJ over him.
Really?
No, I think DJ's a good player. I think Graham is a very good player for what Florida wants to do.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
He's a very good player. Like, I don't think you would be able to go find a better fit unless they just want to change a bunch of things. And then I'm not convinced that Graham's not a dude that can't throw the ball 40 times a game.
And let me be clear. I'm happy Graham Mertz is coming back.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of Gator fans, at least I talked to in the last couple of days, saying, all right, let's go get the best quarterback out there. Well, I think your best option now is to have Mertz and Lagway. And I think Lagway plays a little next year. I don't know how exactly they work that out. You got to get him some experience because after next year, unless they bring somebody in from the portal, you're going to have Lagway and nobody else.
Yeah, the quarterback wasn't the problem. He wasn't the problem this year. So let's use the resources somewhere else.
And I think the writing was on the wall when Max Brown entered the portal. I think Max Brown was pretty much told, Graham's coming back, we're good with DJ. Because there was some concern that when Elko got the job at A&M, that the first call he was going to make was to DJ Lagway. Mm-hmm. Because DJ Lagway lives like 30 minutes or whatever from the A&M campus. He's been there a bunch. You haven't really heard any of that this week, which I guess is a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than hearing a lot. I wouldn't feel comfortable about anybody right now, and I'm not talking about just Florida. I'm talking about across the country. I'm telling y'all, this NIL stuff is insane right now. I wouldn't feel comfortable about anybody until that old school sheet is faxed in on Sunday.
Until they're in the uniform in next September on game day.
That's a good point.
Until they're in the game.
There have been some that have early enrolled, done spring, and then hit the portal right away.
Right.
That's a fair point.
I was talking to a Gator media guy in Gainesville, and he brought up a really interesting point. I know we got to go quick because I want to get to the games tomorrow. If the Gators were playing in the Las Vegas Bowl, right, or like they did last year, or the Birmingham Bowl or whatever, you're practicing, like you're dedicating resources to the bowl game, a bowl game that, quite frankly, a lot of Gator fans wouldn't care about. The fact that you're not going to a bowl game, every resource that Florida has is going into the portal and into recruiting. There's no bowl practices. There's no game to prepare for. There's nothing. It's just Now you reshape the roster and don't have the added stuff of a game ahead. And he was making the point that he almost thinks that's a good thing to be able to focus entirely on that, then get ready for the Las Vegas Bowl against the 6th place Pac-12 team.
I don't know who this is that said this, but this is the coach coming out and me like there's a fury of hate in that comment for me.
I did not say. I'm just the messenger.
To suggest that not being on the field practicing is a good thing, that there's something better than that, the football coach in me just wants to F-bomb this.
What about the football administration person or the fan that's listening to our podcast?
I get what the guy's saying, right? I completely get what the guy's saying, and I understand it. But, man, listen, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, now Florida State, Clemson, these teams, Alabama, if you take the last 5 or 6 years, their success has gotten them another 2 seasons of practices, right? Because they're playing 6 weeks longer than the teams that aren't going to a bowl game. They're practicing 4 of those weeks. Over the course of a college career, let's say it's a 3-year guy, I mean, that is 12 more weeks of practice that they got that you didn't.
Can I be the devil's advocate here? And you might get very upset with my comment.
I probably will, but go ahead.
So those meaningful practices they had before the Las Vegas Bowl last year,
it's practice,
really helped them coming into this season.
Listen, it's practice. It's practice. Your young guys are getting reps on a football field with elite athletes. It's another day of seeing the speed. It's another day of improving the smallest little thing that you don't improve if you're not in live action. There is a massive difference. But my point is, the reason why Kings stay at the top is because they have the leverage. They have this practice time and time again. And by the way, they're still recruiting at a high level, right? You can do both. What we're spending on this staff at Florida don't suggest to me that they couldn't do both of those things. Sorry.
You okay?
Got me fired up.
You're going to make it?
To say that it's better to not be on a football field in the sport of football.
Right, but that's the coach in you, like you said. If you're the fan or if you're the administrator that's trying to figure out, all right,
I'm very uncomfortable.
Transfer portal, recruiting. Well, we don't have to practice for the Las Vegas Bowl. We can donate all our resources into reshaping this roster for 2024. Did I agree with what the guy said? I'm not saying that, but I heard him. It's kind of like, oh, that's an interesting take.
I hear him too. I just don't. I don't agree on any part of that. I just, again, it's the University of Florida.
Yeah.
You want your guys out there practicing. Period.
Let's get to tonight and tomorrow. Southeast Orthopedic Specialist and George Moore Chevrolet bring you this edition of Gator Bytes. Southeast Ortho is Northeast Florida's leading orthopedic center, providing an unparalleled level of care across numerous locations in both Jacksonville and St. Augustine. That includes Riverside, Northside, the South Side, the beaches, Fleming Island, and St. John's. And again, the holiday season, the new year on the horizon. It's a good time to go check out George Moore Chevrolet.
Yeah, go get your car serviced, get an oil change, get some new brakes. Don't ride around with bad brakes. Do whatever it is you got to do. Do it at George Moore. There's good people, really good people, great pricing. They'll treat you right. I'm there all the time. So I love those guys. Good peeps at George Moore. Go see them.
We're recording this on Friday morning. Is tonight's Pac-12 championship game a playoff game? Is the winner in between Oregon and Washington?
Yeah, I think so. By the way, where do they play that?
Las Vegas.
That's awesome. That's great for them. That's awesome. I think so. I think it is.
All right, we got less than 5 minutes to go. Quickly to the SEC championship game, Georgia, Alabama. Who wins?
I think Georgia wins, but I think it's a great game. I think it's a bit of a shootout. If you haven't watched Georgia, because they haven't played until recently, they haven't played a lot of games that you would watch. Their defense is good, but they give up some stuff, right? It's not what it was the 2 previous years. I think Alabama scores, and I think Georgia answers. I think it's a very entertaining, high-scoring game. I think Georgia wins this thing in a nail-biter. Great game.
Let's end with this.
What do you think?
I think Georgia wins, but I think the most chaos would be if Washington wins tonight and Michigan wins tomorrow. There's 2 of your playoff spots that are done. Washington's in, Michigan's in. If Georgia beats Alabama, I'm sorry. If Alabama beats Georgia, if Texas wins the Big 12 and if Florida State beats Louisville, who gets the other 2 spots?
See, I'm not very good at this stuff because I'm not a big, like, I hate to think about ifs. I just can't. My brain doesn't process that. But I mean, I'll put it this way. I don't think you can leave Florida State out. They're undefeated. And I know the Jordan Travis thing. So I don't think you can leave them out. So at that point, I would assume Alabama because they're the SEC champion.
And if that happens, Texas will be screaming.
I get it.
Because they beat Alabama in the regular season. And you would take Florida State with an injured quarterback over the back-to-back defending national champs who might lose to Alabama by a field goal.
No,
it's not the 4 most deserving. It's the 4 best.
I understand that. I don't know the answer to that. I'm glad I don't have to be on the committee in decisions like this because that's a tough one. I mean, you got an undefeated team that was in the top 10 all year, top 5 most of the year, right? It's hard. I don't know their quarterback's hurt, but how are you gonna say that they don't deserve to be one of the 4 teams?
I get it. I think they're one of the most deserving.
Yeah.
Are they currently one of the best?
I get you.
Without Jordan
it's a tough
Travis.
decision.
The committee's going to have their work cut out for them, no question. He is Graham Marsh. That is Denny Thompson. I'm the hacker, Ryan Green. Thank you for watching and listening to Gator Bytes, 1010XL.com and the Florida Gator 1010XL Facebook page.